Pakman. David Pakman, at one point in time, was a Bernie Sanders supporter, was for progressivism, I guess, so to speak. As time went by, David, I guess, got Trump derangement syndrome along with a couple others. And also, David realized it was definitely more lucrative to become a Biden bro, which is what David has decided to do. So David Pakman has kind of been roasted a little bit here on TikTok in reference to this particular issue with Israel and Palestine. And he's gone soft on that too, if you can imagine. Yes, he has. So this gentleman decides to correct David Pakman. And this has been kind of trending around, actually, this video, to correct him on these issues. And it's very obvious what David Pakman is trying to do here. Let's go ahead and get into that video.
The worst time to get a good deal is when you're losing a war. And at this point, it can't be said that Hamas is winning this thing for Palestinians. And if you go back to the 1947 partition plan, it was a 50-50 divide of the land, which at this point would be a fantastic deal, I believe, for Palestinians. They rejected it.
Can you believe those ungrateful Palestinians did not accept being colonized? The audacity.
Let's pause here for just a second. So first of all, I want to add something too. That's really funny, but I want to add something too. When he says that the Palestinians rejected it, when we talked about the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, that actually was not the case. You see, this situation could have been settled in 2002. One of the things about the Arab Peace Initiative that it mentioned is the fact that there were certain things that were laid out, but in the end, it was actually the state of Israel that rejected it. They were the ones that decided not to move forward with it. It still exists. They can agree to this tomorrow. It's not like this agreement, this initiative just went away like out of nowhere, right? It's still there. But it was actually the state of Israel that rejected it. Let's go back to this dude. Let me go back just a little bit. But yeah, he's funny.
Did not accept being colonized. The audacity. In 1947, the UN General Assembly approved a resolution partitioning the British Mandate of Palestine into a Jewish state which incorporated 56% of Palestine, with an Arab state retaining 44%.
It was a 50-50 divide of the land.
It was not 50-50.
They rejected it.
Were the Palestinians asked about this? Did they have a say in what was going to happen to their land? No. This predictably started a war between the newly founded state of Israel and the surrounding Arab states. In the 1948 war, 250,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes and they fled to the Gaza Strip. Today, more than 70% of Gazans are refugees from that 1948 war. And
pause right there. This part is very important. More than 70% of them are refugees from that 1948 war. So this goes all the way back to 1948. This is the thing we were saying. So when people say, don't go that far back, talk about what's happening right now, talk about who attacked who first and who did this first. No, you have to go back to that. You have to start with the history so that people understand how they got here in the first place. Isn't this crazy? Because if you think about it, guys, what would you say? Like the fact that you have basically become a refugee on your own land. How does that happen? Let's continue. 1948 war.
Refugees from that 1948 war and their descendants. This is the good deal.
Fantastic deal.
This person is talking about.
They rejected it.
Does everybody read between the lines of what this person is trying to say? When an Israeli airstrike destroys a hospital, killing 500 innocent civilians as it did today, it's the Palestinians' fault. They should have accepted the terms of the agreement in 1948 and they wouldn't be in this mess.
The worst time to get a good deal is when you're losing a war.
Calling this a war is egregiously irresponsible. I cannot stress that enough. This is not a war. This is a genocide.
Would be a fantastic deal, I believe.
It would be like saying if the United States decided to annex the territory of Kansas and Nebraska for white European settlers, forcing the Native Americans out of that land and concentrating them into a camp in Oklahoma. Oh wait, that already did happen. But you know, if the Native Americans were granted one state in the United States of America,
at this point would be a fantastic deal.
That would be a fantastic deal today.
That's a good comparison, because think about that. Like, would you feel that same way if we made those same statements about indigenous people in this country? If you're Native American, you're only allowed to live in North Dakota. And yes, Native Americans were put onto reservations. And that in itself, I feel like, okay, this is my gift to you after taking your land and slaughtering your people. You get this reservation and we'll give you a couple of casinos. That's also some BS. But David Pakman is actually trying to make it seem like what they were offering to the Palestinians in 1948 is a good thing. That's how far gone, man, I tell you.
Would anyone in their right mind today defend the American policy of apartheid towards the Native Americans, defend the ethnic cleansing, defend the genocide of the Native Americans today? No. Would anyone in their right mind victim shame the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Sioux, the Chippewa, etc., for fighting back against colonialism? I don't think so. And yet, in essence, this is what this person is doing right now. This is just more liberal apologia in the service of power, in the service of empire. This take is not going to age well for this person.
And it didn't. It didn't age well. And there's more, because he's also out here saying that Biden is actually functional as president. I can't tell you, guys, let's get into it.
Okay. We could not have a greater contrast right now between the chaos on the Republican side and the functional presidency of Joe Biden.
He's going too hard, trying too hard. And I honestly feel like David Pakman is trying to sell me something. Like, I feel like I'm watching an infomercial right now. Notice he's using that same word again: chaos, dysfunction. These are the word they're using for people who use that force the vote style, whether it's on the Republican side or the Democrat side. They decided to use that to their advantage. They decided to use that leverage. The squad decided not to. So because they decided to go against Republican leadership, pundits like David Pakman and also mainstream media pundits as well, they call that chaos because you didn't follow order. He's a little too excited. A little too excited.
And the Hamas-Israel fiasco could not be a greater illustration of this. Let me explain. On the Republican right, you currently have the likely presidential nominee, Donald Trump, embroiled in 4 criminal trials, at least one, I think it's maybe 2 civil trials. He's been found to be a civilly liable rapist. He's regularly attacking court personnel after being gagged by multiple judges.
We're just going to pretend like Joe Biden doesn't have sexual assault accusations. This is my push for everybody who brings up that issue in reference to Donald Trump. You know, we don't know. This is not to say that Donald Trump is innocent, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to bring up Donald Trump's accusations, you need to bring up Joe Biden's accusations as well. Hard sell, man.
A Republican House that should have a Speaker of the House, but they don't, and they can't seem to find one. Rebellion within the ranks. It's chaos. And on the Democratic side, we have a trip to the Middle East by Joe Biden that carried with it significant risk, both security risk and geopolitical risk.
It didn't carry no risk for Joe Biden. He's very well protected. He knew where he was going when he got there. It's not like he was going to visit, going to go visit Gaza in person on the ground. He was going into Israel. Stop.
And has been an incredible success, because this is really Joe Biden's top area: international diplomacy and foreign relations. Joe Biden went to the Middle East yesterday, has now announced $100 million in humanitarian aid to Gaza and the West Bank, with the warning from Biden that Hamas damn well better not interfere with the delivery of the aid.
Why would Hamas interfere with the delivery of the aid? If anything, that would be Israel that would interfere with the delivery of the aid. Let me call out something here. Do people in Gaza and the West Bank need humanitarian aid? Absolutely. But the thing is this: why isn't Joe Biden pushing Netanyahu to release the restrictions on the Palestinian civilians, to release the restrictions and restrictions to the food and the water and the electricity. And what good is delivering humanitarian aid to those people going to do if they got to worry about getting bombed while they're sitting there eating the aid that you sent to them? What would be a big win, David, is for Joe Biden when he went over there to call for a ceasefire. That would actually be the big win. Not dropping off some packages. Because the thing is, humanitarian aid that's eventually going to run out. We don't know how long this conflict's going to last. That's eventually going to run out. Then what? Stop letting the state of Israel have all the resources and control all the resources, and this wouldn't be an issue. When Miko Palid was on the show, one of the things he said is like, even when they're trying to grow their own food in Gaza, like they've cut down their trees so that they can't grow, like the olive trees and all that stuff. Like, this is terrible. If he's really trying to be a big winner and a champion for the Palestinian people, call out the apartheid state. But you won't.
Joe Biden has also been able to participate in securing that Israel allow the entry of humanitarian aid to Gaza through Egypt after applying pressure to Israel. Another success for Joe Biden that
the pressure would have never even happened if it wasn't for the pressure of the people on the street. The pressure came from the people who rose up across the world, not just in the US, and hit the freaking streets and called on Joe Biden to do something else. Called on Joe Biden to denounce this genocide. Called on Joe Biden that you cannot let these people be treated this way. So mark my words, people, let's keep it very, very real. If it was not for the outside pressure on the streets, which David Pakman is trying to give credit to Joe Biden for, none of this would have happened. This would not happen. If it wasn't for the outside pressure of the people on the streets, you would not hear Joe Biden saying all Palestinians are not Hamas, because that's not what they were saying earlier. They had to change their rhetoric because people were calling them out.
would not be seeing under someone like Donald Trump or whoever else. And then, like it or not, this is really Biden doing what he does best.
So what on foreign policy, doing what he does best, Joe Biden has allowed two different international conflicts, us to get involved in two international conflicts under his presidency, and he is not even in the second term. Two. Look at what has happened. But according to David, this is what Joe Biden does best.
Joe Biden is now structuring an aid deal to request $100 billion that will go towards Israel, Ukraine, and work on the southern border, which...
Look at this. So you pro with the border now, David Pakman? This is what happens when you have to get up there and chill for Joe Biden. So David Pakman, his show has sponsorships, like for a show, right? He was always growing, but he grew a lot faster once he started to switch his position to shilling for Joe Biden than when he was promoting Bernie Sanders. And David Pakman actually started as a radio show here in Massachusetts. So this is what, look at how hard he has to go with this. Look at how hard. Kyle Kulinski done the same thing. This is what they doing. They got to go really hard and make you convince you that Joe Biden's doing such a good job. Crazy how some of these people have sold out.
Republicans claim is an absolute top issue. Now, you can say, I don't think these three things are worthy. I don't want any money going to what's going on in Israel or Ukraine or the border. You can say that. You can say, I don't like the strategy of bundling things together. Let's have an up and down vote on everything. I would agree with you. It's not the way politics works right now. Knowing how politics does work in the United States and how Republicans operate, this is Joe Biden realizing this is how I get everything done on this funding issue that I want to get done. Republicans resisting funding for Ukraine, Republicans wanting funding for U.S. border security, and Republicans mostly wanting money for Israel, but not necessarily for Gaza. But here's a package that will do something for everybody. And Joe Biden saying, let's do it all. This is 48 hours of some of the most functional and productive presidenting that we have seen in years. And meanwhile, you've got George Santos still as a member of Congress with 30 indictments against him, a former wrestling coach who allegedly worked to not deal with serial sexual assault while he was a wrestling coach, Jim Jordan, endorsed by...
Again, doesn't mention the sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. See, you guys got to understand that David Pakman is very well off. We both live in the Boston area here in Massachusetts. He's very well off. In fact, to show you how many subs does he have now? Let me see. 1.95 million subscribers. Mm-hmm. And he has it as the radio show. Like, David Pakman is very well off. He can afford to sit here and chill for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, what is he doing for the American people? A lot of these people don't bring this stuff up anymore that they championed back in 2016 and 2020 when Bernie and Elizabeth Warren was running. He was actually leaning more towards Elizabeth Warren in 2020. So he was already starting to, you know what I mean? But the thing is that you don't hear a lot of them talking about this stuff anymore. What about the Medicare for all? See, now all of a sudden those things don't matter because people like David are getting paid. Now that David Pakman is over 1 million subscribers and he's making a lot more money now those things don't matter. Now it's not important to have Medicare for all. It's not important for everyone to have health care in this country. See how that works?
Trump, but losing multiple votes. It is disarray in the Republican Party. And look at the accomplishment after accomplishment that in 24 to 48 hours, Joe Biden has achieved.
And this is how you can tell that he's really trying to sell you a lemon, is the fact that if Joe Biden was doing so great as he says he is, why is he struggling to get support? Why is it that the majority of Democrats don't want him to run again in 2024? These are all the polls. If he's doing so great. But this is what he has to sell you. He has to sell you this message.
There's very little else to say. And, it would be nice if voters actually responded to what is taking place in the real world and observed this incredible and stunning contrast and voted on that basis. Instead, it's all, contrived cultural issues and failed talking points and grievance politics. But
let me stop it right there and let me interrupt something because he did tick me off with this comment. The working class people who want a living wage, who want health care or want reliable health care, the people who want housing, who don't want to have to pay $2,000 a month for a tiny apartment anymore, the people who want to be able to get from point A to point B without having to pay expensive car payments that we talked about earlier tonight, or not have to worry about getting their car repossessed, not have to worry about not being able to pay their rent or their electric bill next month. Those people are not focused on culture war issues, David Pakman. Those people are focused on the economic issues and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get by next month. Those people are focused on how they're going to take care of these damn bills so they can keep a roof over their head. They're not talking about no damn culture war issues. David, you know who's talking about the issues, David? You are talking about the culture war issues. You're the one who brings it up. You're the one who's always saying it's about the Republicans versus the Democratic Party. You're the one who is overlooking the needs of the working class people in this country that you used to once give a fuck about. It's you talking about those things. How dare you sit here and make it seem like it's the voters' fault? No, it's people like you that have become very wealthy, and now all of a sudden you don't give a fuck. That's what it's about. Goodbye, David. They kill me. They kill me. David Pakman, he reminds me of some of the people in Massachusetts that have that snobby Democrat, attitude, that snobby liberal bourgeoisie attitude. I'm smarter than you, and I know what I'm talking about, and I'm more educated, and I did this and da-da. And I have education too, just like David Pakman. But the difference is I know how to treat people like they are fucking people, and not that they are less than me or beneath me because I have education. That's the difference. I can't stand it. Bougie liberals. Now, Joe Biden is facing some difficulty in reference to this particular issue. This is something that David Pakman didn't want to show you. Biden walks a tightrope on Israel and Gaza as democratic tensions smolder. The president has won bipartisan plaudits for his response to the war, and his trip to Israel offers a chance to appear statesmanlike. But anger on the left is growing as Israeli strikes pound Gaza. Now, this piece right here. Let me go down to this part. Sorry, it's a long article. The anger and confusion made clear just how precarious of a tightrope Mr. Biden is walking. This is delicate for him, said Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, a progressive Democrat who visited Israel with a congressional delegation this summer. It's a very fine line to walk, and it's one that a lot of us as members, especially progressive members, find ourselves having to try to balance. While Republicans who have offered surprising praise for Mr. Biden's response to the Hamas attack have largely cast the conflict as a black and white issue, things are more complicated among the progressive base of the Democratic Party. And I'm ending with that